None of the subpoenaed members complied, and we are now referring 4 members of Congress for appropriate sanction by the House Ethics Committee for failure to comply with lawful subpoenas.
Those 4 Republicans the committee referred to the House Ethics Committee are notably still sitting members of Congress and will exercise real power when Republicans assume the majority starting in January. There is Scott Perry, one of the members who sought a pardon from the former president for his role in overturning the election. Andy Biggs, who currently sits on the Oversight and Judiciary Committees, who styles himself a candidate for Speaker. Jim Jordan, who's expected to become the chair of the Judiciary Committee when Republicans take control of the House next year. And Kevin McCarthy, potentially the future House Speaker if he manages to survive the Republican Hunger Games. Eugene Robinson, Hugo Lowell, and Kurt Bardella are back with me. Hugo, I'm going to go straight down the middle to you. What is the chatter around these 4 who will be exercising power, particularly Kevin McCarthy, given the fact that they've now been referred for ethics charges?
I think they're breathing a sigh of relief that they weren't referred for criminal contempt of Congress. I think that was the one thing that a lot of these members were worried about. But House, a referral to the House Ethics Committee isn't nothing either. Let's see what the House Ethics Committee does. They're kind of limited in what they can kind of do in terms of holding these members accountable. They could recommend a censure, or they could recommend some sort of other action in the next Congress potentially. But it does raise this kind of really interesting point about if in the Republican majority House, the chairman of the House Ethics Committee is referring the potential speaker, i.e. Kevin McCarthy or Andy Biggs, for censure, it does put the Republican Party in a really difficult position because it quite clearly makes them look like they're doing wrong and criminal activity. This was a lawfully issued subpoena, and even though they don't get referred to the Justice Department, not complying with a subpoena, as the American public knows, is technically a crime.
Well, I mean, how is this going to work at all, Kurt? I mean, you, for sort of House oversight, for instance, they didn't, this is why they're being referred, right, because they ignored subpoenas. On House oversight, one presumes they're going to be issuing subpoenas to do all of their silly investigations of Hunter Biden or whatever, and then should people just ignore them? Because they've set the precedent to ignore them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the hypocrisy run amok here. Jim Jordan and Kevin McCarthy, they've made it no secret that their entire agenda for 2023 is to launch investigation after investigation targeting the Biden administration. I'm not entirely sure how you can issue a subpoena with any credibility when you've spent the last year ignoring congressional subpoenas, going to court suing to try to prevent even compliance with congressional subpoenas, doing everything you can to obstruct a congressional investigation. How in the world do you expect anybody to take seriously your oversight inquiries when this is how you have treated oversight ever since Donald Trump came onto the scene? We've heard this entire time them whine and complain, everything about closed-door depositions and not legitimate subpoenas and all of this belly aching, and now they want everyone to turn around and take them seriously. And I think what they are counting on, Joy, they are counting on the fact that the media won't hold them to that standard, that the media won't point out that context when they launch their investigations, and that they'll get away with it. And we have to make sure that doesn't happen in the Democratic Party.
Well, some of us will. Some of us are going to ask every single day and every time they issue one. Eugene, this isn't Friday, so we're not doing Who Won the Week. But if I was doing it, I would say Speaker Pelosi. Not only is the hearing room where this hearing took place today called the Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Nancy Pelosi hearing room, first time a woman has had that, but she formed this committee in good faith, and it was Kevin McCarthy, the potential future Speaker, if he survives the vote, who said no, I want to put obstructionist on. And she said, you can't do that, sir. And he took the folks off of the committee who could have been sort of a reasonable sort of counter, something that maybe would have been more satisfying to Republicans. Instead, he winds up with Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. And that was his fault. She winds up with a committee that had an incredible success at presenting Republican witnesses against the former president. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it was another one of Kevin McCarthy's really smooth political moves. It was really dumb. Speaker Pelosi rejected 2 of, I believe, there were 5 nominees that Kevin McCarthy put up because they were people who were potentially involved in the conspiracy, so they shouldn't serve on the committee. And instead of replacing them, McCarthy said, "Oh, I'll just cripple the committee by taking all the members off." And I can call it partisan. Well, it ended up being bipartisan because Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney became members of the committee, and it did a better job, certainly than Kevin McCarthy expected, and frankly than I think anyone expected, in bringing this investigation to life and presenting it to the American people in a way that was impactful and digestible. It wasn't, just a bunch of people on a dais going blah, blah, blah for hours on end. They used video, they used videotape testimony, they used video of the actual insurrection. They just very effectively produced this presentation for maximum impact, and it did have impact, and people did watch it and pay attention. And no, there were no dissenting voices in the room because Kevin McCarthy didn't want any dissenting voices in the room, didn't allow any in the room. So it's really on him.
Kurt, one of the people he wanted to put on the committee was one of the people who was involved, Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, who is now being referred on ethics charges because he ignored subpoenas. That's one of the people that he actually wanted to have on the January 6th committee.
Yeah, this entire thing, and Gene's right here, it's in part thanks to Kevin McCarthy and his political brilliance of deciding not to seat members of his own choosing. And let's be clear, I've been part of a lot of investigations and oversight inquiries. This is the most nonpartisan investigation in United States Congress history. When you consider that we had Republican members, a unanimous vote to move this referral outside of the committee, and you consider the fact that most of the witnesses were all Republicans. Hey, let me just say, I'm one of those guys that's rooting for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker of the House. Keep going, Kevin. This is working out great.
Adam Kinzinger and Jamie Raskin have probably never voted for the same thing in their entire congressional careers. They agreed on this. Eugene Robinson, Hugo Lowell, Kurt Bardella, thank you all very much.